Call this meeting to order and welcome everyone here for the Senate Education Youth Committee meeting. As we open up, I'm going to ask Senator McNeil, would you lead us in a word of prayer?
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for the people that are here today. Be with us as we look over the bills and that we do the right thing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, we have a dignitary here with us today, and before we begin, I'd like to ask Mr. Woods if you would come up and share a good word with us as what's going on with the department these days and what's keeping you busy these days. But welcome to the Senate Education and Youth Committee.
Yeah, well,
good to have you here.
Again, thank you again for everyone's service. I know this is an extremely busy time of the year for all of you who are on the General Assembly and for the next couple of weeks. But things as far as education continue to go well in the state of Georgia. We definitely appreciate Governor Kemp and allowing our schools to be open. I think hopefully we will continue to have a great, strong finish at the school year. With things going on. I mean, our milestones testing looks like it's going on schedule. Our graduation rate remained very strong this year, so I'm very pleased at what is going on. Of course, our main focus is trying to make sure our kids are where they need to be academically, and the districts are working very hard to do that, and we're looking at a lot of flexibility. We appreciate even US Ed getting some favorable responses from them about how we could spend the money and taking some things into consideration, especially even just as I shared diesel fuel costs. I said that goes a long way. And so, we're doing what's right. Today, I know you'll be hearing a couple of things or bills, and one of which I know that I'm, passionate about is, looking after our teachers, and especially as they start. I think, I appreciate Senator Tippin's working, and of course, Commissioner Arthur with PSC, and I just, want to just say that, I firmly believe as we look at our teachers in that 5-year period, when you first start off, that's a challenging year. And I think we want to make sure that we continue to expand opportunities, protect them. I think, even yourself, Chairman, I always look at the stories that you talk about with the kids you used to deal with and not giving up on them. And that impact that we want to make sure for our teachers that, to be honest, you go into class and you think you know everything. But you find out reality really hits you that first day where you're actually in charge. And, and I think that as we begin to look at that, we want to make sure that we are supporting them and, and I think looking at, the needs improvement area and what does that look like? What can we do as educators, especially whether it's at the state or local level, to support our teachers to make sure they have the training? This has been a challenging time. Life is different. I can guarantee you that as I look back in the years and was in the classroom, the things that we had to face, in the 1980s and 90s look completely different. COVID, I think, has added some challenges to us across the state, and we want to make sure that these teachers that you don't have, two marks on your record, that again, it is not seen as a failure, but is seen as an option that we can improve. And we want to make sure that improvement is there, and even for experienced teachers as well. So, as you consider legislation today and the bills and stuff, I do want just to share my support on this, and what that means. And we appreciate the bill sponsor and everyone and being here for that as well. Take that into light. I firmly support, the changes that have been made, and I, again, appreciate Senator Tippins and, Commissioner Arthur again for their willingness to work with us on that. And so we're looking for a great day. Thank you for the opportunity. As always, if we can be of any assistance to anyone here, please do not hesitate to reach out. But things are going well in the state of Georgia, and I appreciate your time and just allowing me to stop by today. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all that you do. And on behalf of the committee and everyone up here, I want to say thank you to all of our teachers as well. Yeah. And I know that the last 2 years have been a trying time for everyone, but especially our teachers across the state, and just the fact that they've just gone above and beyond and still caring and teaching for our kids is just it can't be stated enough.
Yeah, well, it has definitely been a team effort. And I would even say from bus drivers to everyone in between, or definitely our teachers and stuff definitely has helped out. And because of that, we really are in a good place. I tell people all the time, I'm glad, I am so blessed to be the state school superintendent of Georgia and not some other states around, our country. But we have done a phenomenal job here. And again, to your point, Mr. Chairman, our teachers have done the work, have not complained, but each and every day they've made the adjustments they've had to. Nobody has taken a Pandemic 101 class, while they were in college. So we've all had to make those adjustments. And again, we appreciate y'all's support as well. It could not be done. And again, thank you again for the amended budget, and again for the $2,000 bonus that's there. And of course, we look forward to seeing the step raises or on our pay scale next year as our teachers come back. So thank you for that. It's greatly appreciated. And again, I want to express my thanks because I do hear it from the field. And our Facebook and social media has lit up on that. I think once we saw that, especially with the amended budget, I can't tell you the number of thanks, and I want to extend that to y'all as well. Okay.
Well, what do you see in the coming years? The obstacles coming forward that we're facing.
I think that as we continue to think forward, it's like where our kids are. We've got to make sure that we're catching them up, but also not necessarily catching them up to a point, but also providing them, access above and beyond. Preparing them, for, the skills that are there. I think expanding graduation pathways, in the future is something we really want to look at. Understanding that not every child is going to a four-year university, but we have a great technical school system. I would dare say the finest in the U.S. Military is a great place, and I think you've served in the military as well. So, my dad was 30 years United States Navy, and he taught U.S. Navy until the day he died. And but also there are a lot of kids that are ready to get into the workforce, and we got to make sure that they have the skill set that allows them to do so. But if somewhere down the road life changes, that they can make those changes and and can carry on. But I think as we look at that, definitely if there's anything in the short term, looking at inflation and some of that cost. Because whether it's diesel fuel or just buying our groceries,
Right.
Our food, those are challenges, and those are not necessarily prescribed in the budget each year. So hopefully our economy can kind of bounce back, and if we see that the inflation decrease, that would be a big help for us across the state, not only for us in education, but for moms and dads and people everywhere.
And for everybody from every corner of the state, it would help.
For all of us here, because like I said, when you go to the grocery store or go to the gas pump, reality hits you pretty quick. So,
Any committee members have any questions for the commissioner?
again, appreciate it. Thank you. But as always, if we yes, okay. All right. Yes.
We do. Senator Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Superintendent, what do you see as the greatest challenge in our schools, our public schools today? You've given us kind of a glowing report. Mm-hmm. What do you see the biggest challenges in challenge? Maybe we don't have any.
Yeah.
What do you see?
Well, I think what continues to be the biggest challenge that we have dealt with in public education probably is the issue of poverty. We still have a lot of poverty throughout the state. That has a direct bearing on where our kids typically come from and what they have to deal with. Just making sure they're ready to learn, and probably sometimes if you had to add on that, just the situation of the family. What happens at home doesn't stay at home; it comes directly into us. And I think providing support to our family as well definitely is areas that if we could improve in those two areas, that would definitely help us out in public education.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Sometimes I think that we use the word poverty, rural schools, rural education, lack of resources, especially wraparound services, as an excuse when children do not measure up to academic capacity or the academic capacity that we want them to have. Mm-hmm. what I see, and this is a personal opinion,
Sure.
nobody has told me this, but I've observed, because I go into a lot of the schools in my 11 counties, so that means I get a very good view of what's going on, is leadership. The leadership that we see from the school board down to the classroom. And if you do not have good leaders at the top, you're going to have a dismal kind of report. You're not going to be able to achieve what we really want to happen in our communities. So poverty is going to be around for a very long time. I don't think it's going anywhere. In fact, it generates economies for a lot of people. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it does. How do we expect to bypass that and move forward? Because we hear it all the time, but it hasn't moved, and it's not going to move very far. How are we going to impact the lives of our students better than what I tend to see when I go into schools?
Well, I would say this again. When I say poverty, I'm not using poverty as an excuse. It's just something we deal with. The expectation is that all kids can learn. I think to your point, dealing with leadership definitely is key. Whether it's in my position, your positions here within our school. I mean, I've always been very open. I would say probably the most important person that we have in education is the school principal. That person is the leadership that is there. Being a former coach, I've always used the example that leadership, will determine the cap of success. If you have a great leader or a great coach, and I've always kind of said that you could have a team whose name is LeBron James for every single player that you're there, or Michael Jordan to pick your decade, I guess, when you're around. But if you are a leader or a coach that constantly calls the wrong plays, you can make that LeBron James or Michael Jordan look like Richard Woods trying to play ball. It's not going to have a winning team. And so I think you are, definitely spot on as far as leadership. But that leadership goes that, even at that point, that we have to have effective leaders in the classroom. Our teachers are the ones that make that difference. And so I think supporting, and again, one of the things we're attempting to do with legislation today is to make sure it's there. But poverty, again, is just looking at that as a starting point, that we know that sometimes when kids come in to us that perhaps they are not academic where we would like for them to be. But that's no excuse for failure. It's no excuse to say that anyone who graduates that we should not be picking them up. And I think that's for us. We have to make sure that our kids can read. I think reading is the most important skill set that they need to acquire while they're in school, but also giving them a strong, firm foundation and math as well, and comprehension, and reading, and looking at literacy, and just being able to communicate. But also understanding that not every child, as I said, is going to a 4-year university. There are a lot of great opportunities that are out there, great careers that are out there. And so we want to make sure that our job, is to make sure that all doors are open as far as a possibility for any child, regardless of where they live.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here today and joining us for a little bit and bringing us up to date. And if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And your
Well, like I said, we got a few bills that are coming y'all's way, so they definitely have our support in there. And what we've talked about today, I just ask for your consideration.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have 2 bills today. We'll go ahead and call Representative Bonner if you would like to come up. We have HB's 1178. I'm sorry. My dyslexia is coming out of me.
All right.
If you, we're working off of this is 1178.
Did we do Corey's bill?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to present House Bill 1178. If it looks familiar to you, it should. This is also Senate Bill 449, which this committee passed out a few weeks ago, carried by Senator Clint Dixon. So rather than rehashing so much of the same, I'll just give you just a brief summary and then be available for any questions if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
And just for the record, we're working off of LC 0880 ECS.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which I only recently found out what ECS stands for.
What's that?
Executive Committee Substitute. Executive Council Substitute.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that. I did not know that.
I didn't either.
Who's that? Who's the executive council?
The council to the chief executive of the state.
What happened to separation of powers?
I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Let me, if I could, I'll go ahead and drive on with this. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 1178 simply places into black letter law the rights of parents we all know to be true. It codifies the parents' rights and the responsibility of the local school system into one place. Currently, most of these are addressed through board rule, which is easily undone. The law, however, is not. This will make it easier for districts and parents to understand their roles. It'll centralize and streamline the process for parents to obtain information regarding their child and provides a framework for schools to provide that information. The bill is not meant to be punitive in any way. It doesn't single out any individual teacher, school, or school board. It was drafted in conjunction with educators and parents from a cross-section of our state. And I do believe that this bill will encourage a greater partnership between our parents and teachers. And I think we can all agree that education works best in a community where parents play an active role alongside our teachers in preparing our children for success. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right. Anyone on the committee with questions? What number? Did you have a question? What? Oh. Son of brass.
I was having trouble hearing. He was like yapping in my ear. Were there any changes from Senator Dixon's bill?
No, it's the same verbiage.
Exact same.
Yes,
Word for word.
Okay.
That was my question.
Except for ECS.
that's correct.
Okay. Well, that's all I got.
And that was your question as well, sir?
Both.
All right, thank you. We do have a few people signed up to speak to this bill. So I will go ahead and just ask you to give you a couple minutes each. Just please be brief. But first we have Michaela.
Arciaga.
Oh yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I could see that you knew it. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
We'll
and
get it eventually.
please let us know who you're with.
Yes. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. Okay. My name is Michaela Arciaga. I work for IDRA, which is the Intercultural Development Research Association. We're here in opposition to this bill currently, as it is currently written, because it does not prioritize the engagement of historically excluded parents and families, specifically those living in poverty mentioned by Superintendent Woods. We rely on over 30 years of authentic family engagement, and we would like to encourage you to consider alternative legislation, not this session, that would better position parents to act as partners in education. And we also feel that this bill overlooks our most important stakeholders, which are our students. There is no mention of the role that students should play in these decisions. But some of our local governance models do already include student input, and this bill would override those models. We're worried that this bill will allow the opinions of a small group of parents or families to infringe on the rights of our students and obstruct their access to diverse and truthful curriculum for all children, not just their own. And for these reasons, we oppose the bill and ask the committee to invest your time and energy and resources that would actually provide more diverse curriculum and engagement for those historically excluded families. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Cindy Battles, Coalition for People's Agenda.
Good afternoon. I almost said good morning. It's a weird day. My name is Cindy Battles. I am the policy director for the Coalition for the People's Agenda, and we are just here once again to stand in opposition to this bill, as well as Senator Dixon's bill. Very much so for those reasons that we have continuously been talking about. This kind of rhetoric seems to have come from the idea that parents were powerless. They have never been powerless in the public education system. Having put 2 kids through the public education system, one of which was under an IEP most of his public education career, I know the power that they had. So I am asking y'all, listening to the state superintendent, to parents, to social workers, we're hearing a large number of these are the things we need and a lack of legislation that is addressing that. So what we're asking is that this bill not move forward and that you focus on those needs instead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Mike Griffin, Georgia Baptist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. My name is Mike Griffin. I'm the Public Affairs Representative with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, and we do support this legislation. And just very quickly, just 3 basic points that we see for reason for support. First of all, on principle, and that is that we agree with the fact that it is a fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing and the education of their minor children. We agree with it on practice, that this is basically practical and that there ought to be practical ways, fair, transparent, and accountable procedures whereby parents can be able to communicate their concerns, and certainly the school shouldn't have anything to fear about being able to share in a light that has a lot of integrity in it on this issue. And then thirdly, priority. You know, our children in our society are our most valuable asset, but also they are very vulnerable liability as well. So it always requires that extra effort, and we think that anything that we can do to continue to enhance that responsibility will help our children. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Next, we have Taylor Hawkins, Frontline Policy Action.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it's a pleasure to be before you and to support this excellent bill. As I said, my name is Taylor Hawkins. I'm the Director of Advocacy for Frontline Policy Action. And we are a pro-family policy organization here in the state, and we seek the enshrinement into law of the protection of parents' rights here in the state, and this bill does that, and we really do appreciate that. Parents' rights to govern the upbringing and education of their children are absolutely foundational. They should be self-evident, and there have been numerous cases across the country and in a rising body of evidence that have shown that in some circumstances and some school systems, not necessarily widespread, but it has been a problem, and it is on the rise. Schools are ignoring parents' rights to have a say in their children's education. They're not hearing their complaints. They are rejecting their requests for records access, and these things would be fixed here in Georgia with the provisions in this bill. I do want to address a few things that were brought up and mentioned beforehand. This bill does not specifically marginalize anyone. This makes no exclusions based on any sort of distinctions. This provides protections for all parents and the parents of all children from across the state. And this bill is a needed change. As I mentioned, has been issues that this bill addresses have been on the rise in the past couple of years. These bills, this one and Senate Bill 449, ensure that this state recognizes the fundamental rights of parents and at the same time empowers them to practically exercise those rights in directing their children's education. Parents' ability to control their children's moral upbringing, decide what manner of schooling is best for their child, access all records relating to the child that their school keeps, review instructional materials for their child, and many other specific protections are guaranteed to parents under this bill, leaving no doubt that this state is and does value and respect the parent's role and responsibility. So in basic terms, as has been mentioned before, this bill accomplishes that by 3 things. Number one, by strengthening the parents' rights in law. Number two, by centralizing all of those rights under one code section so it's easy for parents to access, easy for the school system to understand. And number three, by codifying those rights, as I said, into that central section. So parental rights, access to those records, full transparency, these are all crucially important for the state to recognize. And for all these reasons, we urge passage of House Bill 1178. Thank you, and I stand open for questions.
All right. You have none. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.
Next, we have Cicely Harshkara.
Hello. Thank you. I'm Cecily Harshkaname from Public Education Matters, Georgia. And I wanted this point has been brought up that this legislation is not necessary, that we do already have laws in place. We have USDO Title 20, Chapter 31 that already provides for the parents to access this. So we don't have laws in place that undercut the roles of parents. We have laws in place that protect their rights. And giving parents this fundamental right to direct the education of their children raises the specter of schools forced to contend with a variety of parental demands, curriculum, discipline, and teaching methods, and the related possibility of numerous lawsuits by disgruntled parents. And it raises the possibility that some parents, through individual demands, will in effect threaten what is offered to all students, which this infringes upon students' rights to a robust and sound education offered by the professionals in the classroom. Of course, school systems and boards across the country do need to involve parents, and they need to listen, involve those parents, and with the parents make decisions that are best for their children and for all children. But systems and boards cannot and should not be hamstrung in their ability to serve a broad population with differing needs. It is certainly true that schools should always be looking to continually improve upon ways to reach out and ensure that the child-family-school community relationship is strong. This is best for all. But what does this bill do to strengthen this? What does this bill do to support this? What does this bill do to give the schools and the teachers the support they need and the resources they need to reach out, to further reach out, and bring in this parental involvement that they want and are so welcoming of. So once again, this bill is not necessary in what it purports to do. Parents already have the right to seek information regarding their child's education, but it could cause real harm in what it does do in the message it sends. And it sends the message that we don't trust our teachers, the professionals in the classroom. Meanwhile, we have real problems in education that do, and I liked Superintendent Wood's updates, but we still do have a lot of problems of chronic underfunding, teaching shortages, retention issues, lack of mental health counselors, other support staff. We still need, we've got some, there was a welcome influx of transportation funds, but we know that's still not sufficient. These are very real and critical issues and are past due for attention. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have James Wilson, student.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This bill takes from students. The biggest thing that it takes is the guarantee that the curriculum that we're taught is going to be crafted by educational professionals with students in mind and not individual parents who are looking out solely for their child. To allow parents to have what can be a more disruptive role in the creation and maintenance of public curriculum, it's a great danger to the educational independence of teachers and to the right of students to learn a curriculum that is inclusive, factual, and unbiased. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, that's all we had signed up to speak to the bill. If you'd like to come back to the... All right, any other further discussion on the committee? What would be the will of the committee? Senator Gooch?
Make a motion.
Now would be appropriate time.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to pass House Bill 1178 LC 49080-ECS.
All right, and I have a motion.
Is that the correct LC number?
Yes, sir.
That's what I see.
LC 4908880 ECS.
Correct.
All right, I have a motion. A second. I have a second from We'll say Ms.
Lester, if you're making, I think Senator Jackson made the.
It's Senator McNeil. Any further discussion?
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman.
Speaker motion.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman.
What speaker motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we table House Bill 1178 LC 490880 LCS.
All right, I have a motion to table. Do I have a second on that motion? Second. I have a second.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor of tabling the bill, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will just break the tie. All right, so now we'll go back to the original motion in a second. All those in favor of the bill as presented by Representative Bonner, LC 490880 ECS, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll break the tie. So your bill.
Mr. Chairman, is that a break the tie for negative?
Do what?
Is that a break the tie for negative?
I thought it was 5-5. Did I miscount?
No, so you said you'll break the tie. You didn't. You said you'll break the tie. You didn't say which way you're breaking the tie.
I'm voting for the bill.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good question. Fair question.
That's good. That's good.
Good call, sir. Thank you for the clarification. All right, next we have House Bill 1295. We had this bill in our committee earlier last week, and I think there's a couple substitutes now. And so we have the original bill in our folders, so as passed by the House, and that's LC 490917S. And that is the bill we're starting with today.
Oh, okay, I was going to present the substitute.
Well, we have. That's what we're starting from with the substitute. Then we can add a substitute from that.
Okay.
Because nothing's been changed from that bill, from the original bill since that passed the House. We've not taken any action on that bill yet. So anything we do today is a substitute of that bill.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and present your bill, sir.
Okay. So you want me to present the original bill?
Yes. Or you? Yes.
What bill are we going to vote on today, Mr. Chairman?
Well, we have a substitute, but are you presenting the substitute?
The substitute is
okay.
what I have.
Which substitute
what we've come to an agreement on. That's enough. If that.
And that was LC 490975S?
That is correct.
Okay. And you're going to present that substitute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, it's an honor to be here. It's been great to work with educators first on this. Superintendent Woods, who's already spoken about this bill, is his support behind it, as well as other organizations, GAE and other teacher organizations. And like I stated the other day, in Georgia, within the first 5 years, we lose almost 50% of our incoming teachers. They leave the profession. So the goal of the original bill and this bill, I think what we're accomplished with the substitute as well, is to try to retain some of those teachers, get those teachers in that first 5 years the help they need to develop into exemplary, high achieving teachers is the goal, what we want to do. So basically what we are doing with this substitute, during that first 5 years, we are removing the needs improvement from being a punitive assessment to those teachers as far as the Professional Standards Commission is concerned. They will not be in danger of losing their teaching certificate if they get a needs improvement. Like I said the other day, a lot of schools are hesitant to give a needs improvement because that could cause that teacher to lose that teaching certificate. So with this bill, we eliminate that punitive part, allow them to get the help they need, and get them to be high achieving teachers. And next to a parent, a teacher has the second biggest effect on the outcome of a student. So I mean, they're extremely important, and we want to do all we can to try to retain the teachers and like I say, move them up to be highly effective and exemplary teachers. And that's what we're doing with the bill. The other part, we don't penalize them receiving a year of service if they receive that needs improvement as well, and that's on line 58. So that's basically what we're doing with the bill, Mr. Chairman. I would stand for any questions if there are any, but it was great working with Senator Tippins and Commissioner, Director Matt Arthur with Professional Standards Commission to come up with the language in the substitute.
And what can you just kind of go back and reference the changes between this and the original bill?
I didn't bring the original bill with me, but basically the original bill, it removed the needs improvement, not just for the first 5 years, any time during that teacher's tenure. I mean, from day 1 to day 30 if they work that long. This bill just basically restricts that to the first 5 years. If you get needs improvement, there's no punitive part, the chance of losing their teaching certificate if they do that in the first 5 years. And that's the change.
All right, well, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Who's number 10? My good friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here today. I would like to refer you to page 2 on line 29. What is a non-renewable certificate?
And Director Matt Arthur could probably say that, but that would be their teaching certificate. They would not, and that's the ineffective. If they get 2 ineffectives within that time, it's just they would I guess apply for a one-time. It's just a one year certificate where they could teach the next year and hopefully improve where they would not have an ineffective the 3rd year.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Does that and Mr. Chairman, you may not know this answer, but does that allow the teacher to obtain a provisional certificate that they can attempt to renew every year?
And again, I would defer.
Okay.
To,
can he come up? If he comes up?
I don't think it gives a provisional, but it allows them to teach that next year and then hope to retain their teaching certificate.
Introduce Dr. Young. She's head of certification. She's
Yes.
going to do a better job, and I will explain.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. For those teachers that do have 2 unremediated evaluations, they are able to get a 1-year non-renewable certificate at the request of a school system. And during that year's time, they're able to be on a remediation plan in order to remediate their deficiencies. Or the other option of remediating is if they have satisfactory performance the following school year.
Is that? I'm sorry. Follow Ms. question,
Yes, sir.
Tim?
Yes, sir.
Is that the same as a provisional certificate?
No, a provisional certificate is for someone that's changing careers, and so they have a degree in some other field, and they're coming in to education, and they're able to get a provisional for 3 years and complete a state-approved program for certification. So it's very different. They're paid on a different pay scale. The 1-year non-renewable that they receive to remediate, they're still on the standard pay scale for teachers.
Okay.
Does that help?
That helps. That helps. And since you're here, could you explain to the committee and mainly me what is a non-renewable certificate?
A non-renewable certificate can be requested for educators for many different reasons. So you could have an educator that needs to meet renewal requirements like this for remediation, or maybe they've been out of the field and they're coming back in and need to renew their certificate, and they can get a 1-year non-renewable that the school system can request. Also, if you have an educator that is teaching in one field and they need to place them out of field to teach, they can get a non-renewable for that as well. It's just 3 years.
The
Thank
school
you.
system always starts that process. They have to request a non-renewable. So if someone had work that they had to do under needs improvement, when that school system would request them to come back so they can work on it.
Okay. And that request is given by the principal or the superintendent or somebody in the administration office?
I'm the authorized designee with the school system. So
And that's usually not the principal?
it would depend if it could be a charter school,
Okay.
of course, and the principal would be the one to request it.
Sometimes it's the HR, sometimes it's superintendent, so it just depends on the size of the school system.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else on the committee? All right, seeing none, we do, did you have questions?
Were you working on the original bill?
I'm working off of, there's two substitute LCs in our folders. There's LC 490975S. That's what we're working off of now, and then the late arriving today was the HP, was the 490962S. I'm sorry, that's the, did I just say that backwards?
LC 0962.
Yes, 0962S. Right, and then we'll make that, I'll let you make that motion in an appropriate time. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to withdraw LC 490962S.
You're withdrawing 490962S as a substitute.
Do we have a copy?
We got it in our folder.
Right.
If we're not, I mean, typically, if I'm not mistaken, I think we would move the passage of your bill, and then I would move, or you could move for the substitute to be.
And so is 0975S as the one, I think your admin sent to my
Yes,
office
sir.
yesterday is the one that
Actually, it was this morning, but that's.
Yes.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And so that's the one you're working off
That's
of
the
now?
one I'm working off of, yes.
0975.
So we're working off of,
0975S.
yes, 0975S. So the 0962S is basically, it's null and void. All right, so we're working off LC 490975S. Everybody's on that same page now, right?
Yes.
Okay. We do have a question. Senator Jackson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Since the doctor is so here and so knowledgeable of the subject, one of those, can they remediate if they get a non-renewable certificate?
Yes. Yes,
Short answer, yes. Thank you very much.
absolutely.
Any other questions from the committee? You're doing a fine job, sir. All right, we do have a couple of people to speak to this, signed up to speak to this. First, I will call Lisa Morgan with Georgia Association of Educators. I started to say good morning, but good afternoon. It's been when the days start getting long as you get to day 40.
Not sure what time of day it is. Good afternoon. Chairman Payne, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me time to address this. I am Lisa Morgan, a kindergarten teacher and the current president of the Georgia Association of Educators. And first, I want to say that the original House Bill 1295, we wholeheartedly support. And I would like to point out that your colleagues in the House passed that bill with 159 voting in favor and only 4 voting against. So this is overwhelmingly popular. I would like to point out, and I am reading from the Georgia Department of Education document, the Teacher Keys Effectiveness System Handbook. This is available to all of our educators, because I want you to understand needs development is not the lowest rating. There are 4 ratings that educators can receive. We receive that rating on 10 standards in the TAPS component, which is when our administrator, our principal, our assistant principal actually comes in the classroom and observes us interacting with our students. And there are 10 standards. An educator can receive proficient on 7 out of 10 and still have a needs development at the end of the year. The in effect, and it's, as I said previously, it's the adverbs that are key here. In order to receive a level 4, an exemplary rating, the teacher continually, and I'm reading from Instructional Strategies Standard 3, the teacher continually facilitates students' engagement in learning. Level 3, proficient, the teacher consistently promotes student learning. Level 2, the teacher inconsistently, and that's the needs development. That's not saying this is a teacher that's not teaching. It's saying it's inconsistent, and those are exactly the teachers we need to assist. Level 1, the ineffective, says the teacher does not use appropriate instructional strategies. So I want us to remember that these teachers that are receiving needs development, they are teaching, but they're maybe not teaching the best they could. They may have, as we said before, they may be moving into a new content area. If I'm a kindergarten teacher, I have taught kindergarten for 21 years. If my principal decides that I'm needed in 4th grade next year, I promise you I'm going to struggle and I'm going to need some development. We must consider not only our beginning teachers in their first 5 years, but we also need to remove the punitive aspects of this evaluation for our teachers who are veterans. We renew our certificate every 5 years. And we should not be saying that a teacher who has 2 needs development struggles, that they should not be able to renew their certificate. Let's take the punitive out of this so that we can get teachers the help they need. One thing I would point out, principals understand that they need teachers in the classroom. And if there's a teacher that's on that borderline, that between a proficient and a needs development, when the punitive aspect is there, and if the principal knows a needs development may mean that that teacher loses their certificate, then the principal may round it up a little bit and give them the proficient. And that doesn't help our teachers, and that certainly doesn't help our students. If we take this punitive aspect away, I anticipate, and I will actually say I hope, that principals can be more honest when we have that borderline situation, so we can help that teacher before it gets to the situation that the teacher is ineffective. So I would encourage you, best perfect world, pass the House version. But if we can't pass the House version, let's pass this substitute and begin to take away those adverse actions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Deanna Harris, Educators First.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Deanna Harris. I work with Educators First, which is a teachers association, and we represent all K through 12 public school employees. Happy to be here with you guys. I want to thank Senator Tippins for his help on the new substitute language. We worked very closely with Chairman Corbett and Department of Education on this language for this bill. Wish we could have got the original language through, but here we are. We're also excited to also partner with the DOE on their pilot program for a new innovative way to evaluate our teachers and try to help retain some staff for our schools. So, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Corbett, come back up. Senator Sims, did you have, I'm sorry, I just saw your.
I'm not sure how to ask this because I keep hearing the word punitive against the teacher. When an evaluation is done and it says needs improvement, how do you justify leaving a person in a classroom? Who gets punished, the teacher or the students? Who's there to help that teacher when the assessment that we are saying it's punishing them? Who assesses the teacher, which is usually the principal or some lead teacher or person in the building? How are we going to remediate them? How is that usually done? Maybe DOE or somebody can tell me about it.
I'll be glad to speak on that.
Speak to that. I mean, a professional development plan.
Well, you can have a PDP. Again, that's probably more severe actions with that. Typically, I mean, you would have, and again, I've done numerous evaluations during the course of my time as an administrator. When you sit down and you look and you have those discussions, and especially the end of the year evaluation, some of that would actually require, these are the steps that we'll be looking into. I mean, you work and it's almost a contractual agreement between the educator and the administration as far as the steps that we'll be taking. And I think it's key to remember we're looking at trying to improve, and again, I think we can consistently improve. If there is a teacher that is not doing the job, if they are completely underperforming, if it's very obvious they should not be there, there are steps that are in there. I think that, again, what we're looking at with this is that we do see that that the teacher that is with the needs improvement area does have the ability to function and have a great, classroom. But we're just trying to get that consistency out there. And I think if we pull back and say that within 2 years, if we get 2 of these needs improvement designations, I mean, it could end that person's career. And I think we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities. We continue to improve upon that. And again, those are things that are designated probably typically between the administration and the teacher themselves. So all that stuff is laid out. You could go again to the extreme of a professional PDP, but typically that means that teacher is having some very serious issues if you get down to that. But this is, what we're looking at is actually on the front side before you even get to that designation as well.
Thank you. But Mr. Chairman, may I ask Senator Tippins to give us an explanation of his amendment briefly?
Thank you, Senator Sims. What the amendment does is within the first 5 years of employment, and typically certification runs for a 5-year period. During that first 5-year period, the only way a teacher can be removed or their certification can be lifted is to have 2 ineffective ratings. After the first 5 years, the needs development, I think, is the term that's in code in TEKS. This is not to say that any time any type of deficiency is pointed out, that you're going to get a needs development. I mean, that's good management points out deficiencies and works toward building a stronger workforce. That should be part of the entire process. But if, there needs to be a step between, in my opinion, there needs to be a step in there between proficient and ineffective, and that's need development. And I truly believe that the substitute motion as it's drawn puts enough teeth in it to let someone who, if there's question about enough of your evaluation that you'd be in the needs development category, this is serious. It doesn't need to be ignored. Somebody say, well, I've been teaching for 25 years. I don't need to improve any. I've never taught, I've never run a school, but I do think that sometimes people acquire practices that are detrimental to the educational well-being of students. What the bill does is say that it'll be preserved there. What it does, though, and I think it benefits the teachers, it said if you got either an ineffective or a needs development over a 5-year period of time, what that means is you could get a needs development, say in 2015, it could be remediated and it would be fine. If for some other reason in 2019 that same teacher got a needs development on an entirely different issue, then under current law that could be lifted. But under this bill, it shortens it to 3 years, because what I'd be looking for would be an indication of a decline. If they're in decline, if their needs development the second year, if they're ineffective, what the bill also does is it bridges like between, because you cannot have if a needs development does not count in the first 5 years, but the bill allows it if you get an ineffective within the first 5 years, that ineffective would be bridged in the 3-year basis, because if it didn't, you'd basically be getting 3 ineffectives if you didn't look at a bridge. But we also, and it looks like we may have to have even an amendment to the substitute. I had asked in conversation with Mr. Walker about removing the term unsatisfactory, because that, to my knowledge, unsatisfactory does not appear in code as a definition under teacher evaluations. I'm told that some districts are just giving plain satisfactory and unsatisfactory. That's what they were doing 25 years ago. And that was an unsatisfactory evaluation process, because either they were good or they were bad. It didn't provide for the needs development category. Now, whether we need to put unsatisfactory back in, I personally am not aware of why that would need to be there. But if there's an overriding reason, Mr. Arthur, I'd be glad to look at this. I mean, we can change it if we need to, but it's hard for me to understand why we're putting a criteria in for removal that's not in code. And if it is in code, I don't know where it is.
One point I can make is that not
Can you come to the microphone, please?
TEACS works for teachers, but there are a lot of other staff in the school and in the school system that TEACS doesn't work for, and so they had to come up with you have to come up with an evaluation system for every single person in every position in there, and so TEACS and LEAKS works well for your principals and assistant principals, but and even some in the county office, but then some it doesn't. As a school social worker, LEAKS doesn't work, TEACS doesn't work, but you still have to evaluate them. And so, one reason that we were talking about leaving unsatisfactory is just because it is used quite a bit in Georgia for those other positions. And I'm assuming that's the way we receive everything.
Right. We receive, when we receive unsatisfactory performance reported to us, we receive it not only for teachers and leaders, but we receive it for other staff, like your school counselors, your school social workers, as Mr. Albert mentioned, and other staff there. So they're all evaluated across that school.
We don't know whether they're ineffective or whether it was because of needs development or what. All we have to go on is unsatisfactory. That's what's reported to us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Call for the question.
Make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to pass House Bill 1295 LC 490917S.
Or 0975S.
LC 490917S.
That's the original.
That's the original.
And that's that, which I mean.
Is that sound fine with you, Mr. Chairman?
If it's the will of committee, I would love to have the original bill passed, but at the meeting the other day, it seemed like that was.
That's my motion.
I want to move the ball
Mr.
down
Chairman,
the field, whatever I have to do.
Mr. Chairman, that's my motion.
Okay, I have a motion for due pass on the original bill, LC 490917S. Any further discussion? All those in favor of LC? I'm sorry, I need a second.
Yes, sir.
You second? I'll second. Okay, Senator Avatardi seconds. All right, those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those opposed? 1, 2. All right. We have passed out LC 490917S.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. And having no further business for this committee, we are adjourned.